All right, it's going to be an XSpace. We're going to go in live into X and do a recording here on YouTube as well. I've got plan to have Babbage coming in. They got a big hackathon coming up in the next couple weeks there in Austin, and go into the utility of blockchain and Bitcoin, and also talk about the Strategic Reserve Fund with this crypto council that the Trump administration has brought in, and some of the things that I talked about in a video yesterday. I want to do an open forum. There's incredible, a lot of questions, and it's a really hot topic right now regarding this Bitcoin strategic reserve and, defining Bitcoin, which Bitcoin we're talking about, what Bitcoin's all, how does it all work? But even more importantly is, how do we use this blockchain? What can we do with it? What apps can be built on it? What can entrepreneurs make of it? Because it's much more than just some asset sitting somewhere. And that's what we're going to talk about today as well, is like, how do we actually use this thing? And this hackathon coming up with Babbage is very instrumental in part of it. So I hope to have Ty on as well. So stay tuned on the inside, and we'll see you at the top. All right. And should be a good one today. Stand by. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's a great day. This is Gavin. We got the Bitcoin protocol Babbage Hackathon space today with the use case and also there's so much hype about this strategic reserve stuff, this stuff in the White House that's been going on. I had to mention it. So, Miss Casey Nicole, how are you?
Doing great. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. It looks like we've got Ty from Babbage up as well. Ty.
Hey, Gavin.
Hey.
Good to see you again. Happy to be doing this.
Me too. Likewise. And we looks like we got Scott 369 BSV from the UK, London area.
Hey, Gavin. How you doing? You good?
Doing good. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Glad we've got Ty up, one of the legends of the game, so should be a good space.
Yeah, why don't you feel free to start us out, Scott? I mean, you've posted about this a little bit. So yeah, why don't you introduce Ty and Babbage?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously I think you'd be better because obviously you did the talk with him on the YouTube. But I met Ty in the London Block Conference. He was one of the stalls there. I've always sort of followed him for a while now, seeing all the tools that he's created for the BSV system. So yeah, he's very well informed. I'm not sure there's a question you can ask Ty that he doesn't know about Bitcoin. So he's somebody that I've always very much respected for their vision on how the true Bitcoin should be represented and how he's sort of using BSV. So yeah, really excited to have him here. And also love the interview you did with him on YouTube. So glad we've got this opportunity.
Thank you. Let's go over to Casey. Casey, what are your any introductions or thoughts on Ty from Babbage?
Just when I was working with Ryan, we did the Social Bitcoin Web Consortium stuff, and I know Ty was coming to the table as the next Apple, and I thought that was amazing. I think he's bringing the competition that's needed to the gatekeeping of apps and the metanet. He's just pioneering all of that identity solutions that we need for the next evolution of our internet. So I'm excited for this conversation, and thank you, Ty, for coming.
Thank you, Miss Casey Nicole. And yeah, I'll give my introduction. I had a great talk with Ty a couple weeks back. We did the YouTube video, and we did the whole background story. So I'll post a link to that. Later you can find that on my YouTube channel, like about the whole story about Babbage and Ty and his background growing up and where he came from and that whole part. And then so that's going to give a lot of foundation. And then today we wanted to do a kind of a premise to the hackathon, like that he's going to be putting on in Austin. And it seems like there's so much talk right now in the news about how this digital gold, just buy your Bitcoin and never use it. Don't ever touch it again. It doesn't do anything. So just leave it there. That seems to be the mainstream narrative right now. I just watched the big press conference they had today in the White House. That was the theme. So, And it seems like Ty has got a whole different approach where really he's developing something that is world changing, using this technology, putting it to use and developing tools. So, I want to open up to you, Ty, to start and kind of lead us into the hackathon you got coming up, and feel free to share with what's on your mind.
Yeah. Well, the hackathon is going to be a good first opportunity to, get some early access, get in on the ground floor with some of these tools, and maybe even give some feedback to help shape the future of what this is going to be like. Because, yeah, I mean, I do have some ideas about how we can build things on Bitcoin, but I think that it's going to be important to invite some developers to kind of learn and grow alongside us and help us road test some of this stuff. And so I'm excited about that. The 4 key themes of the hackathon are going to be micropayments, identity, overlay networks, which is like tokens and contracts and that stuff. And then we've got some other things too, related to like monetizing web APIs and things like that. So yeah, pretty excited about that. The wallet toolbox is going to be a big part of it. That was just released under the BSV Association, and so that code is starting to open up, and we're inviting developers to come and preview this tech and help us build some cool open source examples using this new stack. We think it's going to be the future, and that's why we're wanting to support some early stage companies and even just ideas that contribute to the future of what we want to see. So we're excited about that, and we want to lower the bar for developers, for people building apps, people actually using Bitcoin in a way that empowers people, in a way that actually matters and adds value to people's lives. Those are the kind of people we want to support, and that's why I think the technology is valuable, not so much around the price and the speculation and all of that. Some people can argue maybe that's necessary, and to a very limited extent, I could agree with that. But I'm here to be an architect of I think the first cohesive full service stack for standardized, interoperable, fully distributed, Bitcoin development, basically using Bitcoin for what it was meant to be used for, peer-to-peer, electronic cash, electronic contracting between people. And there's a lot that goes into that. So I'm happy to answer questions from developers. And if you want to attend the hackathon, if you'd be interested in this stuff, very simple website name. You might remember it if you, if you go on BSV and use kind of some of our stack, because the website is just bsvhackathon.com. So if you're a developer, you can sign up. It's in Austin. If you want travel sponsorship, you can do that. So if you can't afford to fly to Austin or something, you can show us that you've read our docs and understand stuff, and then we might consider flying you out. And if you're non-technical and you can help be an ambassador, you can go to a local university and host a pizza session with computer science students. We'll kind of fund that, help you get some flyers distributed everywhere, and let some people know about this stuff. But with the understanding that this is a completely new stack, so it is going to be a challenge. You're going to have to learn a lot in a very short amount of time and kind of grow with us here in this very, very early stage. We're also very excited for future events as well. And we're learning as we go. So those are some opportunities. And then finally, if you're a sponsor, you can reach out and we can, or if you'd like to sponsor the event, you can reach out and we can talk about getting you access to, maybe some talent, some developer resumes if you want that. Or you can even give a talk at our hackathon if you'd like to maybe suggest some some ideas for what you'd want people to build on top of the BSV blockchain. So that's the hackathon in a nutshell. Yeah, I'm hoping it's going to be a good first event, and I'm hoping we're going to learn a lot and figure out how hackathons really work, and then put on some other cool events throughout the year as well.
Nice. Thank you, Ty. I wanted to bring up a subject that you've talked about before. Mitch called me up, and Mitch Berman of Metawatt. He called me up and let me know. Yeah, he mentioned that there was some debate online between you and a gentleman by the name of Dean Little about the use. It had to do with using. So, okay. I'm not okay. do you know what I'm talking about? Maybe I'm not.
I am familiar with that discussion. It's something I brought up again recently. No one had really been talking about it for a little while, and I just wanted to clarify the point, I think, kind of once and for all. And I think we've got some pretty, there's strong opinions on both sides, but I think there's a pretty reasonable resolution that we can come to with it. And I can describe that in a little bit of detail if you'd like, but essentially the idea is just making sure that there's a fixed number of tokens in the Bitcoin system that can be considered spendable, and making sure that we don't have an unbounded number of potentially spendable UTXOs into the future. And there's a few like very, very minute details of the Bitcoin protocol and the consensus rules that we were talking about in a lot of depth, and with some very passionate debates that were going on. But yeah, it's an interesting topic, and I don't know how deep into the weeds you want to get on it, but
well, I sent a request over to Alex. Hopefully he can jump up as well, because he probably have a lot of background on this too. But maybe you could just share, Ty, if you could maybe share like Dean Little's perspective. What is Dean Little's point? And then you could share, because I was hoping to get him up here. I asked some people to try to reach him, but I didn't have a way to get through to him. So I don't know. Otherwise, I'd love to hear from him. But maybe you could share his perspective, and then you could share your perspective, so we can kind of understand the difference.
Sure. So the fundamental question here is about a thing called Zero-Satoshi outputs, and whether they can be spent as inputs to a transaction. So in Bitcoin, we have inputs and outputs in our transactions, and outputs contain Bitcoins, which are locked up, and then they can be consumed and used as input in future transactions. Normally, when you send somebody some Bitcoins, then the outputs that you have contain some Satoshis, which are like the coins or tokens, smallest units of Bitcoin. But in Bitcoin, you can also obviously do data. BSV blockchain is all about enabling data-rich use cases on the network. And so people use some outputs that have basically data in them, and that's called like op return. And there is no Satoshis associated with those coins. But what Dean Little did is he sent a transaction that created a Zero-Satoshi output with a spendable script. And then he made another transaction that actually spent the Zero-Satoshi output, which has traditionally only been used for data, but he used it as an input and kind of treated it like a token or something that could be consumed and then used and incorporated again into a chain of spends. And so the controversy is about whether Zero-Satoshi tokens can be used input into transactions. And my position is that they should not. Dean's position is that maybe maybe we could do it. I don't know exactly specifically what the position is beyond that. He has done it a couple of times, and he has made some arguments for maybe we should allow this. And my position was just that in the case of Zero-Satoshi outputs, maybe you can use them as data. I personally don't think it's even necessary to tag data outputs like that, but some people do with op return. So you can use them for data, but to use them as tokens is kind of, I don't know. It creates some problems that that require miners to retain Zero-Satoshi outputs in the UTXO set, in the token set of Bitcoin, basically. And that means they would also maybe potentially need to retain any non-false return script, for example, and it makes pruning a lot more difficult because someone might come along and spend that as input. And by simply saying no, nobody can spend Zero-Satoshi coins as input, it means that miners do not need to treat Zero-Satoshi outputs as tokens or UTXOs, unspent transaction outputs, because they're not by nature spendable. That was mainly the. I think that's a fair characterization. There are arguments that if we ever run out of Satoshis in the future, then we might have to start using Zero-Satoshi inputs. Like if there were no more Satoshis to use, then like every Satoshi was used by a token, and then we need to still use Bitcoin for other things, and therefore we might want to use them as input. And I think that might be one of the arguments on little that position. But the counter argument to that is that the supply and demand of tokens is pretty elastic, in the sense that if the price of tokens were to go up much because of scarcity at that point, where like literally every token was being used or had been lost, there's a couple of things we could do. Controversially, we could try to have and I don't think this is something like Craig Wright would agree with, but I think we could have fractional, or we could split the Satoshi into like 1 million. So then there's like, the smallest unit of Bitcoin would be 1 million times smaller if we ever came to that. Or really, I think the people would just be more careful with what they tokenize and how many tokens they actually use. But yeah, it's a scalability discussion, and it's about how many what needs to be retained as part of the UTXO set, particularly for transaction processors. This doesn't have really any impact at all on end users, except for you just can't spend Zero-Satoshi inputs. It's more so about the scalability of transaction processing software and how complex that software has to be at deciding what can be pruned for the purposes of running a transaction processing node, and what cannot be pruned. So again, very deep dive into the weeds, technical intricacies of the protocol, but I think that's a pretty comprehensive explanation.
I'd say so. Go ahead, Scott.
So there's obviously 2.1 quadrillion Satoshis. That's a lot of Satoshis.
Yeah.
How would that be possible to even use that many? And is that like physically possible?
Well, I mean, to give a devil's advocate, and I'm getting double audio somehow. No, I think it's fixed now. Yeah, we're good. Okay, to give a devil's advocate, I guess you could say that perhaps if every like square foot of land in the world was its own property deed, and that had to be a token, or maybe like every vehicle on the road and every identity of every person in the world and all of their assets, digital and physical otherwise, like you could think of every possible like quote unquote thing. Like a token is really just a digital representation of a thing that exists, that can be owned or transferred or conveyed or have some rights associated with that thing. Maybe even just like the right to access a particular website, or the right to listen to a particular song or something like that. A ticket to watch a movie or something. If you think of 2.1 quadrillion things in the world that can have rights and conveyance and ownership attached to them, those are really tokens. And so that's an interesting thought experiment to question whether we could get to that point. Another argument on that side of things is that, if we lose a lot of the Satoshis, maybe somebody just sends a bunch of Satoshis into the void and they can never be used for tokens, then, one, I would argue, we shouldn't do that. We should preserve we should not throw tokens away. when they could be reused for something else and recycled into the future. But if we were to, like lose access, like if the world were to just kind of collectively not be able to use particular coins, like all those ones that are in the Bitcoin hard drive was in that landfill somewhere, and that guy's still digging for it, 12 years later or something. Those ones maybe we couldn't use as tokens, and so maybe the number is a little bit smaller than 2.1 quadrillion in that case too. But we'll see how it plays out, right? Because that is kind of the very, very long-term conversation to have about that.
And then even if, say, for example, that funny you mentioned that, because that's actually a guy from the town I live in South Wales, Newport. So
interesting.
Yeah, I've spoken to him on Facebook, which is quite funny. He's anti-BSV, ironically. But would something like digital asset recovery not be able to sort of recover those and then put those tokenizations back in?
Yes, if you can, if you can use digital asset recovery tools to regain recognized custody of tokens, you could definitely start to recirculate them and use them again. So definitely that is something that, if somebody were to understand that, digital assets recovery was a useful tool and choose to use it in that way, then most certainly you'd be able to get that back, provided somebody could have, prove good title over it, or maybe even, I don't know, a miner could like put a lien or something. I'm not sure how that could work in practice, but I'm sure that as the decades move on, right, like in a few decades when people start to think about needing to do this, we could definitely, I think, come up with something. Like if your property has been abandoned for 30 years, then that could be, I'm not sure what the constraints would be on that. It's kind of for the legal system to decide, but I would say yes in the short answer.
Ty, let's say that this message gets over to Bo Hines up there in the crypto cabinet in the White House. These guys are all up in the crypto side of things, and they it seems like most of their use case right now has been about trading crypto on exchanges. I mean, what sort of message would you like to send to those guys up there, and maybe like as a potential entrepreneurs for the opportunity that you're presenting them?
Yeah, well, first to the regulators, I would say that it's important to realize not everybody in crypto is anti-regulation, and it's very, very possible to articulate a design for a blockchain where regulation can be enforced, court orders can be enforced, law and order kind of can be put on the blockchain, so that criminal gangs, ransomware gangs, hacking groups, and a bunch of other really bad people who like to evade sanctions, for example. I know the North Koreans do a lot with kind of laundering money through crypto. I think it's important for the White House and regulators to invest in a blockchain that embraces the ability to have regulatory compliance built in. And I think it's important for them to probe the leadership of all these various different factions, various different blockchain projects, about whether they believe code is law or whether they believe that law is law, right? So for the regulators, I mean, look into the compliance capabilities and the tools that are offered by various platforms, and figure out which ones align with the kind of strategic goals that you have in what you want to do and what kind of use cases you want to enable. If you want to enable things like identity ownership, micropayments, if you want to enable transparency for supply chain and for even like governmental spending and other operations like that. Good record keeping that can't be tampered with. If you want those benefits of distributed ledger technology, then you should look for something that enables that while also making sure that a whole bunch of bad people don't get a free pass to, have a bunch of fraud, right? And of course, there's the financial services and financial technology aspect of this, where decentralized protocols offer new opportunities. But we have to balance those opportunities with risk as well. And when regulators start to think in this way, I think they're going to kind of start to question, which blockchains they should be looking at, and which ones they might want to, which ones they might want to give some more credibility to, right? Um, and then, yeah, going back to entrepreneurs and the capabilities that can be enabled, I think that most entrepreneurs want to build a business on top of a network that isn't in a regulatory gray area, right? If you are building on a network that, like XMR, if you're building a business on top of XMR Monero, right? Obviously, that's a very, very privacy focused, but also very dangerous and risky system to use as a foundation. I mean, you can certainly benefit from the privacy aspects of distributed ledger technology within your business while making sure that the core of the network is compliant and able to be subject to regulatory oversight and the ability to, like, if a court order comes and says that $1 million that was just stolen by that ransomware gang needs to be returned, and then those assets can actually be seized, under proceeds of crime, and that type of thing can actually happen. As a entrepreneur, as a business looking to monetize in the real world with actually mainstream people, your customers, right? Not necessarily just the crypto niche, but if you're trying to build something that's not for crypto, you're building it for maybe, I don't know, gamers, or maybe you're building something for ed tech, for like making it easier for students to earn little skill certificates, and then use that in the hiring process to prove to employers that maybe you're building a little platform for skill attestation, or whatever it is that you're building. You've got to have regulatory certainty, because you don't want to build your house on a foundation of sand. So my message to them is, in the same vein, ask yourself, if you really want to build something for the long term, what kind of foundation you'd want to have there. But the goal with what we're doing is to, make sure that we are maximizing regulatory clarity on that side, while also lowering the bar for like developers and people actually building real use cases. So, creating infrastructure, creating standards, creating tools and reference implementations, guidance, documentations, hackathons, investment, and start to really show the utility of what this stuff can do. And, if you're on board with that, then we'd love to engage with you. We'd love to help you build stuff, and even offer our services as consultants, because that's one of the things that Babbage does. So that'd be my message to those people is ask yourself why you're here, how long you want to be here. And if you're here for more than just a short time, probably you're going to want to think about this a little bit, and ask whether the mainstream world, the very world that we're trying to disrupt by using this technology for all of its benefits, is going to accept a system built on regulatory uncertainty and code is law, anti-government principles, or whether we should build on a system that is going to enable a very strategic vision for the future, and a very transparent foundation, but one that one that's subject to regulatory oversight. I mean, yeah, that's
Nice.
it's a it's a big task to think about all this stuff and to balance all those things, especially in these early days. But I'm confident that as more people lay their chips on the table and kind of figure out where things are, we're gonna have some more clarity on this, and people are gonna start to figure out what it is they want to be contributing to.
Yeah. Feel free to request up for any questions or comments. I see Stefan's in the audience, Alex Favell, Ray, Rory, anybody else who wants to come up, feel free to request. Casey will get you up here. So yeah, I mean, Ty, this is crazy. I mean, what would you tell, where do you tell these people to start? Because it seems like the trading side of things is mostly what they know. Where should they start? Where do they begin? Like you said, look at these things, but what do they look at? Where would they go to?
Well, it depends on who you are. If you are like a business leader, somebody just curious about this tech and what it can do for you, I mean, firstly, I understand if you're not wanting to put your name out there and, go partner with a bunch of these people in various coins, and then they put your logo up on their website and say, "Oh, we're partners with so and so Fortune 500 company." But I mean, just reach out to us. I mean, we can talk to people privately. We can start to help facilitate the understanding at the level of business leadership and on the enterprise side, and regulators as well. I mean, Bo Hines has been doing a great job of going on his listening tour recently and really understanding what some of this stuff is all about. So big props to him for keeping an open mind and getting a lay of the land properly before just kind of, being very, I guess, heavy-handed and whatnot with everything.
Yeah.
So
Can you share a little bit more about Bo Hines? Because I have a little bit of familiar with who he is and his background. He's definitely probably not too well known to anyone here. Maybe you can share who he is, and then also what he's been doing. That you a little more background behind what you're saying.
yeah.
Up to. Yeah.
So the state of play on the regulatory side right now, in the United States at least, is on, I think it was like the third day of his presidency, Donald Trump made an executive order saying that he wanted to make the United States into the crypto capital of the world, which is something that I mean, I think that the United States should invest in all manner of distributed ledger technology, provided that it is that it's lawful and that it's going to do some good for the world. And he appointed David Sachs as his AI and crypto czar in his cabinet. So under David Sachs reports Bo Hines. And Bo Hines is a younger fellow. He's, I think he was a wide receiver, played college football for a while. I think in 2014 or so, he might have played a game that was sponsored by BitPay or something like that, and had been involved in holding some Bitcoins personally for a little bit, back in the day. And he was invited to the table to kind of help coordinate this stuff because he ran for Congress in, I think it was 2020 and maybe 2024, and I could be wrong on those dates. But he ran as a MAGA Republican, so therefore Donald Trump tapped him to be underneath David Sachs and to help organize some of this stuff and put together the first ever crypto summit, which happened today at the White House. There was that press conference, of course, and they're looking at various people around to try to get the lay of the land and open up some conversations. We saw the old SEC Commissioner Gary Gensler step down, and we have some new people coming into focus there. There's also the CFTC, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, and they're going to hopefully take a more active role in regulating commodity-based digital assets that are sufficiently decentralized to be termed commodities, such as BSV, and then more there's the Treasury Department. There's of course FinCEN, and there's various regulatory bodies, and they all have a seat at the table, and they're starting to talk about this stuff and really figure out what this stuff is all about, what it's good for, I hope, but then also, just attempting to make sure there's regulatory clarity and certainty about how all this stuff works, and we're open to collaborating with any of those people, of course. And that's really what I know about it. I'm more on the research side, believe it or not. I focus on, like, building the tools, writing the code, making the tech stuff happen. But I think it's going to be an important step for the technology to start to gain that type of acceptance from regulators, and start to have some certainty about what it is that we're doing, and how it is that we can do it.
Okay, I'm gonna go. If you could mute for a second, Ty, I'm gonna go over to Scott. He wants to talk, and he's got a dual echo on his mic. So everybody mute. Let Scott say his.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, just to add a little bit of extra detail to that, Brian Doherty, one of the guys from Smart Ledger, he's had, I know of at least one meeting, but there may be more with Bo Hines. So Bo is well informed on BSV. He's well informed of technologies like Smart Ledger, Certi-Hash, the Weather Station program, product passports. Like he's I'm sure those guys have informed him well of the capabilities of what Bitcoin SV can do. So I'm very much, he knows what's going on. So yeah, it would be great for more people in the space like yourself to talk to him, just to sort of, it's always good when there's multiple voices saying the same thing and showing other implementations of the technologies, but he definitely knows.
Nice. Okay.
Absolutely. And Brian Doherty's been doing some great work to make sure that they have a good context over there in Washington, D.C., and show the capabilities of the system. Terranode with 1 million transactions per second, and all of that stuff. I think it's going to be a really good thing to show some of the utility as well, right? And so, like, with some of the developer tooling that we're building, we're very excited to be launching some new infrastructure, and then we can certainly contribute to making sure that that everything is aligned from a regulatory perspective, and kind of just show the tech in action. Show it actually doing what it's supposed to do, and then we can go from there.
Okay, Ty, can you take a question from the audience here, or comment?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to bring up someone here called Ives Edwards. Looks like you're should be up on the stage now. Okay, did he join, Casey, or did he drop? Ives Edwards, he's in. Yeah, go ahead, Ives Edwards. You're up on the stage. Mike's to you. Questions or comments for Babbage?
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested, I guess, how do you have like a positive view of the regulators or regulation in general? I guess that's my question. And why?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's necessary to make sure we have open dialogue with them. Make sure that we're not going to get regulated out of existence. Make sure they understand about more just a pump and dump scam or something to empower criminals, which, to this point, it's managed to do those things, unfortunately, quite a lot, and that's gotten a lot of the attention. So, I mean, letting them know what we can actually do with micropayments, digital identity, and those types of things, I think is going to be extremely valuable for the future, just because it's going to help make sure that, when big companies do want to build on this tech, they know that regulators have articulated a clear stance on it, so that the risk for those people isn't so high when they want to buy into it. I mean, in terms of making sure that developers have what they need, I think that's like equally as equally as important, if not more, because we need to show that the tech actually does these things. But then having those conversations with regulators along the side as well, saying, here's this example, right? Here's a list of like 5 companies who've really gotten a lot out of using this tech for what it's actually good for, right? That I think would make a really strong case for them about developing an informed opinion about it over time, right? And I think if they do that if they can understand those things, we're going to be in a better spot than if they just kind of regulate willy-nilly, because they're going to regulate regardless, right? We can't stop them. We can't pretend like we're above the law or something. We need to recognize the realities of political dynamics in the world in which we live, where mainstream want regulation and want government to a certain extent involved in certain things. And so by doing that while maximizing adherence to the things that actually make the tech valuable, right? I think we can strike the right balance so that we get devs and businesses building on the tech on one side, but then regulatory certainty on the other side, and we can hopefully avoid some of the scams and fraud in that process. I mean, I really think that there's a lot more to this tech than what people really understand in the mainstream right now. And if we can get that kind of buy-in, maybe some bigger players can help us in shaping that narrative towards our advantage in the long term. And that's been my strategy. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. Ives Edwards, any other comments or reply you'd like to make there or questions?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I see is your perspective. I mean, I would say like we should also be wary of the regulators and then the states. I mean, if you think about the inception of Bitcoin, why was Bitcoin even necessary? Because of the regulators and because of the states.
Yeah.
And controlling the money and doing a bad job of it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I would say don't put too much faith or trust in them. And you're also becoming part of a large bureaucracy, which slows down creativity. I mean, the
Sure.
reason that crypto is allowed to flourish in the first place was because of lack of regulations, because we're not stifling the creativity or stifling the people and
absolutely.
So yeah, it's I mean, I wouldn't say like I'm on the side of the regulators or the state in any way, shape, or form. But I understand your perspective and why.
I agree with you.
The mainstream thing. I kind of get that. A lot of people aren't trusting of things that aren't, in somehow related to or don't have some government oversight at least. So I understand that.
I mean, the price of freedom is eternal vigilance, right? Like we have to be transparent about how we don't trust these people. And I don't necessarily trust the government. I'm not, there's a reason why we have representative government, and it's because, monarchies did bad things historically and we couldn't trust them. And so, we've always moved away from big, bad governments, tyrannical governments, and Bitcoin was actually kind of like that as well. I think it's going to give more power to people than they've ever had before to help prevent some of that stuff. And the blockchain is a transparent, permanent marker. It's like, you can write things on the blockchain, and maybe it doesn't mean that, like even in the case of like DAR, like digital asset recovery or something, one could argue like the ownership isn't like immutable and hard coded into the blockchain, but the record of what did happen and the record of the things from the past, those are permanent. And I hope that creates a lot more transparency around enforcement. And right now, people can't just say, oh, that never happened, because guess what? I have a Merkle proof. I can prove that this data did exist at this time. I can prove that these transactions were accepted by the network at this time. And maybe somebody makes a court order that says that's no longer valid, but now I can, now I have that fallback. And I mean, like, I don't want to go and build a CBDC. I support the CBDC ban. Like that's a big thing that I was very happy about, is the government is not going to create, at least at this time, a CBDC, and I'd like to see that maintained in the United States. I don't want a digital CBDC dollar on that's like you have to use to pay for everything. Like that would be a little bit dystopian in my opinion. I like the ability to have cash and gold and silver
we
and
have Tether
things.
and USDC and stable coins
Well,
for that.
those stable coins, I'd like to see more transparency, because like imagine if I know that people are skeptical of like accounting firms and like traditional methods of audit and all of that, but like if we could invite stable coins to exist without being so dodgy like Tether is, and actually bring them under true scrutiny and like make them into a legitimized institution that did have a degree of credibility around, right? Whether you think the US dollar is actually backed by all the gold in Fort Knox or not, at least we can maybe have some more credibility that Tether, the company or whatever, is issuing stable coins that are backed by something other than thin air, right? Because like that would be, or maybe have the FDIC insure stable coins in case that type of insolvency does happen in the same way they do for banks. I don't know.
And I
like,
want to jump in, Ty, on that tether
Sure.
note. I want to put this out there into the Twitter X spheres and the YouTube verse, that if anybody has any connections with the people at Tether, definitely reach out to me. We want to I want to set up a talk with those people, and because there could be a lot of opportunity with Tether or these others, right? Where maybe making more transparency, because if you watch Secretary Ludnick today at the crypto conference that happened, he said that the White House is embracing blockchain technology. He said Bitcoin too, but he said blockchain technology. Now, I mean, what does that mean to you, Ty? Blockchain technology. I mean, is that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's huge in my opinion. I mean, I don't know if they're going to get this right the first time around. Because I don't know if there's enough of the prevailing sentiment that is aligned and proper, like around how you would go about making these choices the first time around. But if they're willing to learn and be transparent like they've been doing, that's like the right path to be on. And there is so much that we can do with blockchain technology. You can say Bitcoin, blockchain technology, whatever, but like the capability to do these ledgers in a transparent and scalable way, and then you can build a lot of stuff on top of that. Like that's really huge. And like BSV with overlay networks, that's one of the, I think that's going to be one of the foremost forms of blockchain technology into the future. And yeah, I mean, I didn't watch that stuff yet. I've been busy today, but I am going to update myself on it this evening, and I'm very, that makes me pretty excited. Like I'm glad they're investing more than just let's spend $1 trillion of taxpayer money to buy Bitcoin. Like that's really, really, really bad in my opinion. We shouldn't do that. I mean, I understand the strategy of a strategic like reserve of Bitcoin and whatever, but I think more so like strategically useful technologies should be invested in in terms of giving them the regulatory certainty that they need to become mainstream, without stifling innovation and without doing the wrong thing, and while making sure that we're not trusting these people too much, and putting all of our faith in government either. Like we need to, like you're saying, we need to balance these things, and because we need to get to mainstream adoption, like period. We need to do that and balance the necessary things to get there, even if it means sacrifice of our ideals about chancellors on the brink of second bailouts for bank, like it says in the Genesis block. I mean, that's a great ideal to start from, because it's the ideal of I think it's the correct ideal to start from.
Casey,
can I just say something quickly?
Casey, hold on,
Sure.
hold on.
Oh.
Casey shared this White House creating strategic Bitcoin reserve digital stockpile that you kind of mentioned, the stockpile. So I want to just comment on this, and that it's he mentioned this as well as the Bitcoin reserve in an executive order, and it, just to clarify what it says in there, is it defines Bitcoin two ways. You've got Bitcoin the protocol, with a large B. Now that's after the period, not like, I'm not saying period then large B. I'm saying during the middle of a sentence, large B, Bitcoin, capitalized. Then there's lowercase b, which is BTC. And then it talks about digital gold being the uppercase B, Bitcoin. So in a way, it's like, it was kind of interesting to think like maybe it's what he's referring to with the digital gold side is anything prior to August 1st, 2017. I mean, it's hard to, but I mean,
I don't know about that logic.
You don't know? You don't know about that? Or, I mean,
Well, I guess I mean like
yeah.
I would like to believe that they are aware of that, and maybe they are to some point. But definitely, you know, like I think the important thing is that we maintain connections with the people, have more meetings, and see where it goes. Like the executive order, you know, it comes from the right place for the time and for the context they have. Hopefully we can find the best way, the best strategy to implement that stuff. And you know, because although it is interesting if they do define those terms differently and actually truly draw a clear distinction between the protocol and the current BTC ticker.
Right. And now it's nothing more than just more of an idea, or I'd say an opinion. It definitely is not law, or it has no relevance right now. So, but it's a starting point. Now it did say tie into the reserve that what they're doing is they're just utilizing all of the seized assets for now. So they're not buying anything from crypto. They're just taking what's already in the government's possession, and they're going to put that into like a digital Fort Knox. That's their goal, basically, for now.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
I believe the majority of it is coming from Silk Road as well. So prior to the SegWit protocol. Yeah,
definitely. Most of it's Silk Road and that era. So yeah, it's a super hot topic right now. So
yeah, it's interesting for sure.
Yeah. Okay, feel free to jump up on any comments or questions. We never heard from Alex Favell, man. I'd love to hear from you, buddy. How you been? Rory, coming up. All right, we're going over to you next. And we got Satoshi. He's on the room. Okay, Rory, if you're up, feel free to jump up. How are you?
Yes. Hi, Gavin. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, try that again.
It
Rory?
looks like the audio dropped for some reason.
Yeah, we lost your audio, Rory. Tone Vase. We'll come right back to you, Rory, if you can fix your audio. Tone Vase, we're going to you. Tone. If you, go ahead. How are you?
Hey, good evening, everybody. I just wanted to add a comment on the not buying, but just holding confiscated. I think that was a huge concern to the BTC bag holders. You know, the fact that all of that seized coins can't be sold, you know, to benefit the government. That puts a lot of concern to rest about the community needing to suddenly come up with the money to buy those coins without the price dropping.
Huh. How do you mean? I haven't really considered that. How does that? What is the economics behind that? I don't. What do you mean by that?
It goes to liquidity. It's, you know, if there are 70,000 BTC that the government currently holds in this reserve, you know, we're trillions of dollars in debt. You know, the obvious thing to do would be to sell it off and pay down the debt. Instead, it's going to be, you know, just done with paperwork. You know, we're going to pretend that the BTC is equivalent to holding gold, and we're going to offset the debt, you know, by the amount that we're holding in Bitcoin, at least by certain measures of financial performance. But in reality, you know, I would be much happier if they converted it to cash and paid down the debt, you know, the traditional way. But to do that, they would have to go to the market and sell 70,000 BTC, which would put tremendous pressure on all the people currently maintaining liquidity on exchanges. They need to come up with the money to buy those coins at the market price to prevent it from reducing the market price.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I saw Michael
I'd
Saylor in
agree.
the room there. Go ahead, Ty.
I'd agree that they should probably sell the BTC and pay the debt. That's just my personal opinion. It'd probably be better for the country in the long term. Warren Buffett said something: if you don't understand something, what's it good for, then you got to question whether you should invest in it.
Yeah.
To paraphrase.
I sent a request over there to UCAM Doge Profit if you want to come up here. If you have any other replies there, Tones, feel free to reply or comment. Love to hear from you.
I'm just here working on the code, and I happened to pop on to X to see what was going on and saw you guys running a space. So here I am, just
for context, everybody, Tone works on the technical team on some of the stuff that Babbage is working on, and he's doing some really great work. We're working with BSV transaction processors to help make sure that transactions get processed smoothly, and hopefully we can report some positive progress there pretty quickly, and looking forward to building again some more useful wallet infrastructure for the network and kind of what Tone does. So happy to talk about whatever, but we can talk about more technical stuff, we can talk about more legal stuff, we can answer questions about the hackathon, anything else really.
Nice. All right. Well, that's great to meet you, Tones. It sounds like you're going to be at supporting Babbage with the hackathon. Why don't we go over to Cam, Doge Profit for you? Good to see you, buddy. It's been a minute. How you been?
Hey, Gavin. Yeah, I'm doing good, man. Good to see you. Thanks for doing the space. I just wanted to mention one thing that I see as like quite significant regarding the Bitcoin strategic reserve idea, is that Elon Musk has for sure 100% indicated that he's aware that Bitcoin was hijacked.
Really? That's been on X. People have been asking about that. How do you know?
Because there was a I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but someone was talking about the hijacking Bitcoin book. Might have been related to when like Liz started looking into the corruption of Bitcoin, and he wrote a reply with like a double exclamation mark, like indicating that he's aware, like he saw like the discussion happening, and he has commented on the inefficiencies of Bitcoin before. And so if there's something called the Department of Government Efficiency, then it only makes sense that as tech support for the Republic or whatever, he would eventually figure out that the original protocol is the most efficient one. Ideally.
I hope so. I think you might be getting us very closer to there. Yeah.
And have appoint Babbage up there to one of the executive roles. How about that?
they got my phone number, I'm sure. They can I don't know. Happy to talk about it. We'll see what happens.
I mean, there's not too many more people more qualified than Ty from Babbage to take on that role right there. So go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, one thing to note is obviously, the amount of Bitcoin that they hold, I believe it's around 198,000, give or take. I know the Biden administration sold quite a few, and I think total amounts that have been confiscated over the years is around 270. So I know they've sold quite a bit, but if they were to sell that Bitcoin to wipe off some of the national debt, you're only going to be getting around 15 to 20 billion. And when you think about the national debt being like 36 trillion, I think it's a tiny little drop in the pool of paying that debt off. And when you look at what Doge has been doing and the billions and billions and billions, they have a price target of $1 trillion worth of savings in government efficiency. And for me, the key point with the Bitcoin reserve is why I think it's advantageous for them to hold it is if these coins are pre-split coins, then they don't just hold 200,000 BTC, they hold 200,000 BCH, 200,000 BSV. And so if they let the market do what the market's going to do, and it does go to zero and BSV does fly